My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 35 years old, and for almost my entire life, my family had one favorite joke about me. Elena's just dramatic. That was the label. Not smart like my brother Ryan, not charming like my cousin Becca, not successful like my older sister Lauren. No, I was dramatic. If I cried after being insulted, dramatic. If I defended myself, dramatic. If I stayed quiet too long, dramatic. If I finally exploded after years of disrespect, suddenly I was crazy. Families do this thing sometimes. They hand everybody a role before they even know who they are. And once they decide who you are, they stop listening to anything that doesn't fit the script. My family wrote my script when I was 9 years old. And for the next 26 years, they made sure I stayed inside it. But here's the thing they never understood. When you spend your whole life treating somebody like they're invisible, you never notice when they quietly become powerful. And by the time my family realized who I actually was, it was way too late. If you've ever been the family punching bag, the one they laughed at during dinner, the one who got blamed for everything, this story is gonna hit different. So, grab your coffee, turn the volume up, and stay with me. Because what happened at my mother's retirement party last October, man, those people are still talking about it. I grew up in a little Ohio town where everybody knew everybody's business before breakfast. The kind of town where people waved from pickup trucks, where church gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi, where your last name mattered almost more than your first. And in our town, the Brooks family looked perfect from the outside. Dad owned a hardware store, Mom taught elementary school for 30 years, Lauren was homecoming queen, Ryan played football. Then there was me. Skinny, quiet, too emotional, always reading, always drawing, always too sensitive. That phrase lived in our house. "You're too sensitive, Elena." I heard it so many times growing up that eventually I stopped defending myself, stopped explaining, stopped reacting. Because reacting only gave them more material. At family dinners, my sister Lauren would make little comments about my clothes. "You dressing like a librarian again?" Everybody laughed. Ryan would grab my sketchbook and flip through my drawings in front of cousins. "What is this sad emo stuff?" More laughter. My mom's favorite line was worse. "Elena just takes things the wrong way." That sentence ruined me for years. Because once somebody says that enough, people stop caring what actually happened. They only care how you reacted to it. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 13. Lauren got perfume and jewelry. Ryan got a new PlayStation. I got a self-help book. I can still remember the title, How to Stop Overthinking. My Aunt Denise laughed so hard she snorted mashed potatoes through her nose. "See," she said, "even Santa thinks Elena needs to relax." Everybody cracked up. Everybody except my grandfather. He was sitting at the end of the table, eating quietly. Didn't laugh, didn't smile. He just looked at me for a second. Like he knew something nobody else did. My grandfather, Walter Brooks, was the only person in that family who really saw me. He owned a small construction company most of his life, built half the barns and storefronts in our county. Big, rough hands, flannel shirts year-round, old-school kind of man. Didn't talk much, but when he spoke, people listened. When I was 15, he caught me sketching buildings on notebook paper during a family barbecue. Everybody else was outside laughing by the grill. He sat beside me quietly. "You draw these?" I nodded. He studied the page for a long time. Then he said something nobody had ever said to me before. "You notice things other people miss." That sentence stayed with me for 20 years. Because when the whole world treats you like a burden, one person believing in you feels like oxygen. But even Grandpa couldn't stop the way the rest of the family treated me, especially my mother. See, my mother loved appearances more than people. Everything had to look right. Perfect lawn, perfect Christmas cards, perfect family photos. And I ruined the image because I wasn't shiny enough. Lauren wore makeup at 14. I wore hoodies and headphones. Lauren dated quarterbacks. I spent weekends reading architecture magazines from the library. My mom used to stare at me like I was a puzzle she regretted buying. You could be pretty if you tried. That one stuck, too. Funny how parents forget the things they say, and kids remember them word for word forever. When I got accepted into the University of Michigan architecture program, I thought maybe things would finally change. I was wrong. At dinner that night, Ryan got more attention for winning a local football trophy than I got for earning a scholarship. My dad actually said, "That architecture stuff sounds expensive." Not "congratulations," not "we're proud of you," just expensive. Lauren looked up from her phone and said, "So what exactly do architects even do all day?" Everybody laughed again. I laughed too. That's what happens after years of being the joke. You start helping people humiliate you because at least it gives you some control over the timing. College changed me though. Not overnight, not movie style, slowly, like sunrise. For the first time in my life, nobody knew me as the dramatic one. Professors listened when I spoke. Classmates respected my work. People asked my opinion and actually waited for the answer. I worked like a maniac. 3 jobs, no sleep, coffee instead of meals half the time. I spent nights drafting blueprints while everybody else partied. And honestly, I liked it, because every hour I worked felt like building an escape route. By 27, I was working for one of the top restoration firms in Chicago. By 31, I had started my own company. Not flashy, not social media rich, real rich. The kind built quietly. Historic hotels, old theaters, downtown restoration contracts. I became very, very good at saving buildings people had given up on. Funny, right? Turns out broken things understood me perfectly. Meanwhile, my family still talked to me like I was the unstable teenager crying at Thanksgiving. I stopped trying to impress them years earlier. You can't convince people to respect you when disrespect benefits their ego. So I stayed quiet, built my company, bought a condo downtown, hired employees, won awards. And my family barely knew any of it. Not because I hid it, because they never asked. That's the crazy part. People think estrangement always comes from screaming fights. Sometimes it comes from years of nobody bothering to know you at all. Then came the retirement party, the party that blew everything wide open. My mother retired after 30 years teaching 3rd grade, and naturally, she wanted a giant celebration. Country club ballroom, caterer, photo wall, gold decorations. She called me 3 weeks before the party. "Elena, don't wear black this time, okay? This isn't one of your moody Chicago art events." Same tone, same dismissiveness. 35 years old, and she still talked to me like I was 16. I almost didn't go. Honestly, I had already drafted the text message in my head. Can't make it, work emergency. Easy, clean, no drama. But then Grandpa called. "Elena," he said, "your mama's difficult, but she's still your mama." I stared out my office window for a long time after that. Then he added quietly, "And sometimes people need one last chance to show you who they really are." So I went. Big mistake. Or maybe the best thing that ever happened to me. The ballroom looked exactly like my mother's personality. Expensive, carefully arranged, cold underneath. Lauren was already there in some cream-colored designer dress, pretending she owned the place. Ryan was near the bar telling loud stories to anybody trapped long enough to listen. My mother spotted me immediately. There it is, that little disappointed look parents think they hide well. "Elena," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek, "you actually came." Actually. Like even my attendance surprised her. Then she glanced at my pantsuit. "At least you didn't wear black." Lauren snorted into her wineglass. I smiled politely because I had mastered emotional survival years earlier. You know what's exhausting? Not hatred, performance. Pretending disrespect doesn't hurt. Pretending humiliation is normal. Pretending your family loves you while they slowly erase pieces of you. That's exhausting. The ballroom filled fast. Teachers, neighbors, church friends, extended family. Everybody adored my mother. And honestly, I understood why. Outside our house, she was warm, funny, supportive. Some people save their cruelty for private audiences. Around 7 o'clock, they started speeches. Ryan gave a speech first, mostly jokes. Lauren cried dramatically into the microphone for attention. Then my Aunt Denise stood up, and that woman, Lord. Aunt Denise treated gossip like an Olympic sport. She grabbed the microphone and started telling funny family stories, which really meant stories designed to embarrass me. "Elena was always our emotional one," she laughed. "Remember when she cried because Ryan accidentally ripped her drawing?" Accidentally. He tore up 6 months of my work, on purpose. I was 14. The entire room laughed anyway. Then Denise kept going. She once locked herself in the bathroom for 2 hours because Lauren said her bangs looked weird. More laughter. I looked down at my water glass. Same feeling as childhood, like shrinking in public. Then Denise smiled wider. "Oh, and Elena used to say she'd become some famous architect one day. Remember that phase?" Phase. The entire ballroom laughed. My mother laughed too. That's when something inside me finally snapped loose. Not loudly, quietly. Like a chain breaking underwater. Because suddenly I realized something. None of these people knew me. Not really. They knew the version of me my family created for entertainment, and my family preferred that version because it kept them comfortable. Then Aunt Denise said the sentence that changed everything. She was always dreaming too big for what she was. Silence hit me first, then heat. I looked across the room. My grandfather was staring at the floor. My father looked uncomfortable, but said nothing, like always. And my mother? Still smiling. Still letting it happen. That's when I stood up. Not angry, not dramatic. Calm. And calm scares people more than yelling ever will. I walked toward the stage slowly. You could feel the room shifting. Denise handed me the microphone with this smug little grin, like she expected me to make a scene, like she wanted to. I took the microphone, looked around the ballroom, and for the first time in my entire life, I stopped trying to make my family comfortable. I held that microphone in my hand, and suddenly every sound in the ballroom disappeared. No forks clinking, no chairs moving, no fake little country club laughter. Just silence. The kind of silence that happens right before a storm hits. Aunt Denise stepped back, smiling like she just handed fireworks to a toddler. She thought I was about to embarrass myself. Truth is, so did everybody else. Because my family had spent 35 years teaching people that Elena Brooks was emotional, unstable, too sensitive. So the whole room was waiting for me to cry, or yell, or run out embarrassed. But pain changes people. And quiet pain, that changes people the most. I looked around the ballroom slowly. teachers my mother worked with, neighbors from my hometown, church ladies who used to pinch my cheeks when I was little, my cousins, my brother, my sister, all these people who thought they knew me. Then I smiled, small, calm. "You know what's funny?" I said into the microphone. "My family's been telling stories about me my whole life." A couple nervous laughs. I kept going. And every single one somehow ends with me being the problem. Now the room got still. My mother shifted in her seat. That woman knew tones. She'd spent decades controlling them, and she recognized mine immediately. This wasn't hurt. This was done. I used to think maybe they were right. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I was dramatic. Maybe something was wrong with me. Denise crossed her arms. Lauren rolled her eyes already. Classic Lauren. But nobody interrupted me. "Then I moved away," I said, and something weird happened. I looked straight at my mother. People liked me. Dead silence. You could literally hear the AC humming over the dance floor. At college, professors respected my work. In Chicago, clients trusted me with multi-million-dollar restoration projects. Employees built careers working beside me. Ryan frowned. I could actually see confusion forming on his face. Like, hold up, what projects? Because none of them knew. Not really. You know why my family doesn't know much about my life? Because none of them ever cared enough to ask. Boom. That hit the room hard, especially the older folks. See, small-town America runs on appearances. Family reputation means everything. And suddenly, people were realizing maybe the Brooks family dynamic wasn't cute after all. My mother stood up fast. "Elena, honey, maybe this isn't the—" "No," I said calmly. "It's exactly the time." That shocked her more than anything. I had never cut her off before. Not once. I turned back to the crowd. My aunt mentioned my architecture phase. I reached into my purse, pulled out a folded magazine, walked over to the projector table near the stage. The young guy running slides looked confused as hell. "Mind if I borrow this?" He nodded. 30 seconds later, my company logo filled the giant ballroom screen. Brooks Restoration Group. Then another image appeared. An old Chicago theater before renovation, collapsed roof, broken windows. Then the after photo. Beautiful. Golden lights, packed opening night crowd. Murmurs spread through the room immediately. I clicked again. Historic hotel restoration, then courthouse restoration, then a waterfront arts district project. Project after project after project. $1 million contracts, magazine covers, awards, interviews. The ballroom had gone absolutely dead. And I mean dead. The kind of silence where people stop chewing mid-bite. My cousin Trevor literally whispered, "Holy crap!" I looked at Aunt Denise. That phase turned into a company worth $42 million last year. Her face lost color so fast, it honestly scared me a little. Ryan sat forward in his chair. Lauren blinked hard twice. And my mother? My mother looked like somebody had yanked the floor out from under her. Because suddenly, her favorite family narrative had a very public problem. The dramatic daughter was wildly successful, and not fake Instagram successful either. Real successful, the dangerous kind. Quiet money, respected money, power money. I clicked the remote again. A Forbes feature appeared on the screen, my face beside the headline. The Woman Saving America's Forgotten Buildings. Now people were straight up staring at me. One of my mother's coworkers actually covered her mouth. And that's when I said the thing I'd wanted to say for 20 years. You all laughed at me for dreaming too big. I looked around slowly. But the truth is, I shrugged lightly. I dreamed too small. Man, you could feel that sentence land. Even the bartender froze. My mother rushed toward the stage. "Elena, sweetheart, we are all very proud of you." I laughed. Not loud, just once. And everybody in that room knew it was the saddest sound they'd heard all night. "No," I said softly, "you're proud now." That one hurt her. I saw it immediately. Because manipulative people survive by controlling the timeline. If they can rewrite history fast enough, they never have to face what actually happened. But I was done helping her rewrite things. I looked toward my grandfather, still sitting quietly near the back, watching me carefully. Then I said, "You want to know the craziest part?" Nobody moved. My grandfather is the only person in my family who ever believed I could do this. Every head in the room turned toward Grandpa Walter. His eyes got shiny immediately. And suddenly, my mother looked furious. Not embarrassed, furious. Because narcissistic parents hate witnesses, especially ones who love you correctly. I stepped off stage and walked toward my grandfather. The ballroom parted like water. I stopped beside his chair. "When I was 15, I said, Grandpa told me I noticed things other people miss." I smiled down at him. That sentence changed my whole life. His mouth trembled, big, rough construction worker hands shaking against the armrest. Then he whispered, "You built it yourself, kiddo." That almost broke me right there. Almost. But then my mother snapped. And I mean snapped. "Oh, please," she said sharply. "Can we stop acting like Elena grew up abused?" Gasps. Real gasps. Because rich white suburban people can tolerate cruelty until somebody says it out loud. My mother realized too late what she'd done. But now she was emotional. And emotional people lose control. Funny how that works. I turned slowly. "I never said abused." She crossed her arms. "We joked around. That's what families do." I nodded once. "You gave Lauren birthday trips to Florida." Silence. "You forgot my 16th birthday because Ryan had football playoffs." Now people were looking uncomfortable. "You framed Lauren's college diploma in the hallway." I paused. "You kept mine in the garage for 2 years." The room physically shifted, like all the oxygen changed temperature. My dad suddenly stood up. "Elena." But I looked straight at him. "No, Dad, you don't get to hide behind silence tonight." That hit him hard. Because passive parents always think neutrality saves them. It doesn't. It just makes them quieter accomplices. My father sat back down slowly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Then Lauren stood up, and oh man, Lauren still thought this was fixable. That's the privilege of being the golden child. You think reality bends for you forever. She walked toward me with that fake calm voice. "Okay, seriously, you're turning Mom's retirement party into therapy hour." A couple nervous laughs. Nobody committed fully, though. The energy had changed too much. I looked at Lauren. "You know what I remember most about childhood?" She rolled her eyes immediately. Please. I remember you reading my diary out loud to your friends. Her face froze. You told everybody at school I had a crush on a teacher. More silence. You called me pathetic because I cried. Lauren folded her arms tighter. We were kids. No, I said quietly. You were cruel. Boom. That one knocked the breath out of her. Because bullies survive by downgrading the damage afterwards. Just jokes, just kids, just teasing. But scars don't care what label created them. My cousin Becca suddenly spoke up from a nearby table. I remember that. Everybody looked at her. Becca swallowed hard. You guys were really mean to Elena. Now that changed everything. See, once one person tells the truth publicly, other people start finding courage too. Another cousin nodded slowly. Yeah, honestly, they were. Aunt Denise jumped in immediately. Oh, come on. Nobody traumatized Elena. She always took things too personally. And there it was again. The family slogan. Too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. I walked toward Denise slowly. Not aggressive, just steady. You know what's interesting? I asked. Every cruel person I've ever met eventually accused somebody else of being too sensitive. Denise opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because manipulative people hate direct language. It exposes the game. I looked around the ballroom one more time. Then I said the sentence that split my family clean down the middle. The problem was never that I was too sensitive. I paused. The problem was that all of you got comfortable hurting me. Jesus, you could have dropped a pin in there. Even the DJ looked traumatized. My mother started crying now. Real tears. But not guilt tears. Image tears. The kind that happen when control slips publicly. You're humiliating me, she whispered. And man, that sentence healed something inside me forever. Because for 35 years, humiliation only mattered when it happened to her, not me. Never me. I looked at my mother for a long moment, then finally said, No, Mom. I set the microphone down gently on a nearby table. This is just the first time anybody believed me. And I walked away, straight through the ballroom, straight past the photo wall, straight toward the exit doors. Nobody stopped me. Nobody even breathed. Until behind me, I heard one pair of footsteps. Slow, heavy, familiar. My grandfather. Kiddo, he called quietly. I turned around. That old man stood there in his brown jacket, holding his truck keys. And what he said next changed everything. Drive behind me, he said. I got something you need to see. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise without setting an alarm. That used to happen whenever I was stressed. My body learned long ago that peace never lasted long in the Holloway family. Even silence felt temporary, like the second before glass breaks. I sat on the edge of the bed in my apartment, staring at the blinking microwave clock. 5:12 a.m. Outside, Chicago was still dark. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and somewhere down below, a garbage truck rattled through the alley like chains dragging across concrete. I should have felt victorious after the gala. That's what people imagine revenge feels like fireworks, like movie music, like standing on top of a mountain while everyone who hurt you finally suffers. But real revenge? Real revenge is quiet. It's sitting alone in sweatpants eating cold leftover lo mein while your phone explodes with messages from people who ignored you for 15 years. It's watching your family suddenly discover your existence the second your name means something. And deep down, it's realizing they still don't actually see you. Not really. My phone buzzed again across the nightstand. Jolene. 3 missed calls. 1 text. Mom's been crying all night. I hope you're happy. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Families like mine always confuse consequences with cruelty. You expose the truth, and suddenly you're the villain for hurting everyone. Never mind the years they hurt you first. I tossed the phone face down and walked to the kitchen. Coffee. Black. Strong enough to wake the dead. While it brewed, I opened my laptop. 43 unread emails, most from people in the architecture world after the gala speech. 2 interview requests, 1 podcast invitation, 3 speaking offers, and 1 email from a major preservation foundation in Boston asking if I'd consider leading a national restoration initiative. I stared at the screen. At 16, my own mother told me nobody would ever want to look at me long enough to listen to me. Now, strangers across the country wanted to hear me speak. Funny how life works. My inbox kept refreshing. Then another email appeared. From my father. Subject line, "Proud of you, kiddo." That was it. No long emotional paragraph, no dramatic apology, just 4 words. But my father had always been a man who said oceans with teaspoons. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes for a second. Then another message came in, this one from an unknown number. You embarrassed your mother in front of everybody. Hope it was worth it. No signature needed. Patricia. I deleted it without replying. Some people treat accountability like abuse because it's the first time anyone ever told them no. By noon, social media had fully detonated. Someone from the gala uploaded clips of Nora's introduction. Millions of views overnight. Comments everywhere. Her family ignored that woman? The quiet daughters always become legends. This healed something in me. This made me cry in the airport, bruh. One comment hit harder than the others. You can always tell which child in a family became successful without validation. They move different. I stared at that sentence for a long time, because it was true. People raised with love walk through life expecting doors to open. People raised without it learn how to build doors from scratch. Around 2 p.m., there was a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my breath caught. My father stood there, holding a small overnight bag. Rain dotted his jacket shoulders. Behind him sat his old Ford pickup, coughing smoke into the cold air. Dad? He looked exhausted. Not physically, soul exhausted. Can I come in? I stepped aside immediately. He moved slower since the stroke. Careful steps, cane tapping softly against hardwood floors. I made fresh coffee while he sat at my tiny kitchen table. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then finally, he looked around at my apartment. You built a nice life here. 5 words, but again, oceans with teaspoons. Thanks. He nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and slid an envelope across the table. I think these belong to you. Inside were photographs. Hundreds of them. My chest tightened. Every milestone from my life. Pictures I didn't even know existed. Me at 12 holding a spelling bee certificate. Me at 14 sketching buildings. Me asleep on the couch with architecture textbooks spread across my chest. Me moving into college. me standing beside my first restored courthouse. Every photo carefully labeled in my father's handwriting. Dates, locations, little notes. Faith after winning Regional Design Award. Faith first apartment. Faith graduation dinner. I looked up at him. "You kept all these?" He shrugged softly. "Couldn't put 'em on the wall." That sentence near shattered me, because I understood what he meant. He had spent decades surviving my mother instead of confronting her, loving quietly, supporting secretly, documenting privately, a witness trapped inside his own silence. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. The words came rough, like they hurt coming out. "For all of it." I swallowed hard. My father stared into his coffee. "When your mom started treating you different, I kept thinking it would pass." He rubbed his thumb against the mug handle. "Then years went by, and after a while, silence becomes a habit." Rain hit the windows harder. Chicago traffic hissed below. "I failed you, kiddo." "No," I whispered, but he shook his head. "Yes, I did." That was the thing about real apologies. They don't defend themselves. They don't explain. They don't ask for sympathy. They just stand there, naked and ugly and true. My father looked older than I'd ever seen him. Not weak, just worn down by years of choosing peace over courage. "I used to wait till your mom went to sleep. Then I'd read every article about you online." I straightened. "All of them?" He nodded. "Even the boring architecture ones." I laughed through tears. And for the first time in my entire life, my father laughed with me instead of watching from the sidelines. That evening, we ordered pizza. Cheap, greasy Chicago pizza folded in paper plates. And we talked. Really talked. For hours. About architecture, about mom, about why people stay quiet too long. About fear, about regret. At one point, he looked around at my apartment again and smiled faintly. "You know what the funny part is?" "What?" "You look exactly like your mother did at your age." That hit me like a freight train, because my whole childhood I'd been told I inherited all the bad features, the Mercer nose, the sharp jaw, the serious eyes. My mother hated those features because they were hers. Not mine. She spent 30 years punishing me for resembling the version of herself she abandoned. Around midnight, my father fell asleep on the couch while SportsCenter played softly in the background. I covered him with a blanket. Then I stood by the window watching rain slide down the glass. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. 3 days later, the magazine article officially dropped. American Preservation Magazine, October issue. The headline stretched across 6 pages. "The Woman Who Saves What Everyone Else Abandons." Nora had written it beautifully, not just about buildings, about resilience, about overlooked places, about communities people stopped believing in. And somewhere in the middle of the article was one sentence that made me put the magazine down and cry in my office. Faith Mercer restores structures the same way she rebuilt herself, patiently, quietly, and without asking permission to matter. The internet lost its mind again. Interviews, invitations, speaking engagements. My assistant, Jasmine, walked into my office holding her phone like it was radioactive. Your mom's on Facebook." Lord, never good. I took the phone. My mother had posted a photo of the magazine cover. Caption, "Always knew my daughter was destined for greatness. So proud of the woman she became." Over 800 likes. The comments were brutal, though. "Then why your sister said she sat at the kids' table?" Funny how successful daughters suddenly become favorites. "Ma'am, the internet saw the speech." I handed the phone back slowly. "What'd she expect?" Jasmine snorted. "Boomers really think social media got amnesia." That night, Jolene called again. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something in me was tired of unfinished conversations. So I answered. What? Silence first. Then, you really hate us now? Straight to victim mode. Classic. I don't hate you. Sure feels like it. I leaned against my kitchen counter. You know what's wild, Joe? What? You had every advantage in the world and still somehow made yourself the victim. Silence. Then sharper this time. You embarrassed Mom. No, Mom embarrassed herself. That woman at the gala had no right. That woman, I interrupted calmly, was the first person who ever defended me publicly. Jolene exhaled hard. You always thought you were better than us. I laughed softly. No, I just finally realized I deserved the same love you got for free. Dead silence. Then the line disconnected. No goodbye, no resolution. Families rarely give you movie endings. Sometimes healing just means the argument stops hurting. A week later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was my mother's old sketchbook, the green spiral one from the attic. No note, no explanation, just the sketchbook. I sat on my office floor, flipping through page after page of her drawings. Beautiful work, precise, ambitious, alive. Near the back was something I'd never seen before. A charcoal self-portrait, young Diane Holloway, 19 years old, eyes full of ambition, and written underneath in faded pencil, I don't want to disappear. I stared at those words for a long time, then finally whispered into the empty office, you didn't. Because despite everything, despite the cruelty, despite the damage, I understood her now. Not forgiven, not excused, understood. My mother spent her whole life grieving the person she never became, and every time she looked at me, she saw proof that version of herself could have existed. That kind of regret turns poisonous if you leave it buried long enough. A month later, I stood in front of the abandoned gas station from the highway. Construction crews moved around behind me. County approved the restoration proposal unanimously. The building would become a free community art center. Kids from low-income neighborhoods would learn architecture, painting, woodworking, photography. Second chances inside second-hand walls. A local reporter asked why I cared so much about saving forgotten places. I looked at the cracked windows, the broken sign, the bones underneath the damage. Then I answered honestly, because abandoned doesn't mean worthless. That quote ended up everywhere online. T-shirts, TikToks, coffee mugs. America loves a comeback story, especially when it belongs to the quiet girl nobody noticed until she stopped asking permission to exist. 6 months after the reunion, my father moved into an apartment 15 minutes from me. Small place, 1 bedroom, old building with squeaky pipes. He loved it. Started going to Cubs games again, started laughing louder, started existing outside my mother's shadow for 40 years. One Saturday, we hung the framed magazine cover in his living room, right in the center wall. He stepped back afterwards, hands on hips. Looks good there. Yeah, I said quietly. It did. A year ago, I was still trying to earn love from people committed to misunderstanding me. Now, I spend my days restoring buildings, teaching interns, taking photos of myself smiling without needing someone else to approve the picture first. And once in a while, when I drive highways through forgotten towns, I spot abandoned structures leaning tired against the sky. Most people see junk. I see potential. Guess that's because I know what it feels like when the world decides your story's already over. They were wrong about those buildings.
And they were wrong about me, too.